Welcome in for another episode of the Silver and Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Sanchez. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Corey Douglas. Corey, it's a big week, probably the biggest, as we discussed earlier in the week, probably the biggest Cowboys regular season game in some time. They're coming in 4-1, heading into Philadelphia with a 5-0 record in Philadelphia. First place on the line, first place in the NFC on the line. Unfortunately, don't think we're going to get the return of Dak Prescott this week. It sounds like that may happen next week against the Lions, but nonetheless, we're going in here playing with house money after winning the first 4 Cooper Rush starts. Corey, how are we feeling as we head into the weekend?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement building up, getting ready for Sunday night. I know Philadelphia is going to be crazy on
Yeah.
Sunday. I know Jason Peters kind of made some headlines this week talking about their fans, and Mike McCarthy talked about kind of getting his rookies and players that haven't played in Philadelphia ready to go for this environment that they're going to walk into Sunday. But definitely a lot of excitement.
Yeah, it's an exciting matchup for sure. I'm really pumped for Sunday night. I'm not sure how pumped I'm going to be whenever we see Cooper Rush out there, just because I know they've gone 4-0, but as I said in my offensive review this week, they've been winning because of the defense, and offensively things are officially, I think, hanging on by a thread. I mean, you're not going to win many road games, especially against good teams, when you have 10 first downs, I think 76 net passing yards. You're just not going to win many games doing that. So things are hanging on by a thread for the Cowboys offense without Dak. And thankfully his return is around the corner. But this is ideal. It's how you're playing with house money. If you win, you put a pretty big stake into the hearts of the early season Philadelphia hype. If they lose at home to Cooper Rush, is pretty heavy favorites. Last I checked, the line was 6.5, which that's inside a touchdown. But I mean, for NFL wise, that's a pretty big. That's a pretty big spread for an NFL game. So you're going in there playing with house money. I mean, when Dak first got hurt, if you would have said, "Hey, if we're gonna be 4-2 after the Philadelphia game," you would have said, "Sign me the hell up for that." So, obviously, if they win, that would just be unbelievably tremendous. It's hard to overstate how big a win for Dallas would be, but given expectations, given where we were when Dak got hurt, 4-2 is tremendous and something none of us ever could have imagined. And again, this is assuming Dak comes back next week, which sounds like he had a little bit of a shot to play this week, but they're being careful. So yeah, it's a big week, man. I'm excited, and like you said, it's going to be a hornet's nest out there. And I just hope they're ready for it, and it's just going to be all about the defense again.
Yeah, I think this game it definitely is important on multiple levels. Of course, if you win, you're in first place with the tiebreaker over Philadelphia. If you lose, you're 2 games behind Philadelphia, and they have the one up on you heading into, I think it's Christmas Eve when they play for the second matchup here in Dallas. But overall, it's just a huge game. I would say for both teams, I think the Eagles, like you said, the Cowboys are playing with house money. The Eagles, on paper, they should win this football game and should probably do it fairly easy. They're this big bad team that's Super Bowl bound after 5 weeks, and losing a home game, a home primetime game to a Cooper Rush led Cowboys team would be an early kind of like, wait a minute, they're going to start looking in the mirror, especially when you look at the success the Cowboys have had against the Eagles the last couple of years. And it starts to become mental at that point where they're like, okay, what do we have to do to beat these guys? So I think the Cowboys going in there and that defense making a statement could go a long way, not into just securing the NFC East or securing the NFC East, against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into specifics of matchups and what have you, just a brief update on the injury report. Philadelphia seems like they're going to be a full go this week. Looking at their injury report, it's just a bunch of limited participants. It seems like they're going to get Jordan Mailata back, who I believe missed last week against Arizona. They have some guys that are banged up, but generally they're healthy. Looking at the Cowboys injury report, and this is as of yesterday. There's going to be a Friday one that's released later today, but we're recording early Friday afternoon. looks like Cowboys should have everybody minus Dak. There's some limited participants, but a lot of it's workload stuff. Dak was listed as limited on Thursday. It sounds like it's kind of weird. I guess we heard last week Jason Peters was going to be out several weeks with this chest injury that popped up on Friday, and I guess he's playing this week now. I'm not sure exactly. They were really vague with that injury. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but maybe part of it is Peters wants to be up for this Philly game in his return to Philadelphia in a Cowboys uniform, which I'm sure will be very weird for him. So maybe he wants to be up for that. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that Conor McGovern has been really bad so far. And again, maybe part of that's injury, but he's not been very good, especially since his return from the ankle injury. So, getting Jason Peters back should help, assuming he's healthy enough to go. But yeah, other than that, nothing really significant on the injury report besides Dak, which again sounds like he's going to miss this week.
Yeah, I think when you think of in terms of the Cowboys injuries right now, I mean, you got Michael Parsons, dealing with, whatever he's dealing with. I mean, there's multiple injuries at this point, little nagging things. DeMarcus Lawrence with a chest, nothing major. He said he's going to be going in full force. CeeDee Lamb was dealing with something last week or a couple of weeks ago that he's kind of nursing and kind of playing through or whatever. So at this point in the season, they always say in the NFL that, no one's healthy after week one or as soon as you take the first hit in week one. So yeah, nothing. I don't think anything out of this game, or I don't think after this game you're going to be able to say, well, if this happened aside from Dak, obviously that's the biggest quarterback runs the league. But other than that, I don't really think you look at the injuries and say, okay, well, if this would have happened or if this guy was healthy, the thing would have been different outside of Dak. But again, they're 4-0 with Cooper Rush, the starting quarterback. However, they're getting it done. They're getting it done. They've gotten it done. So yeah, and then with the Eagles, I think the thing that stood out to me with the Eagles injury report is the offensive line because when I look at this matchup, that is an obvious strength for the Eagles. And if they're down one or maybe two of those guys, I think it changes the whole dynamic of this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into the matchups here right now, but just tipping my hand a little bit at what I think is going to really matter on Sunday. I think the trenches are going to really decide this game. Let's start with the Cowboys offense against the Philly defense. Again, offensively, I said earlier, and I said in my offensive review, things are hanging on by a thread. That they've been able to run the ball decently well, but it wasn't a great game from the O-line last week. Cooper Rush's limitations are really starting to show, and Dalton Schultz doesn't seem healthy, and your receivers haven't made the best decisions in terms of drops. There's a couple really bad drops with Gallup and CD. I know Gallup made that amazing catch last week, but it seems like they're kind of ready for Dak to take over the reins again, which obviously will be a welcome sight. But going into this week, like I said, it's all going to be about the trenches. Philadelphia has a really strong. It's strength on both sides of the ball. I feel like Philadelphia has a great defensive line. Dallas's offensive line has been pretty solid so far. And then on the flip side, Dallas's defensive line is absolutely elite, and Philadelphia's offensive line is absolutely elite. So, but yeah, that Dallas O line is going to have a test. I mean, across the board, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Javon Hargrave, you have Brandon Graham, you have Jordan Davis, you have Hassan Reddick. I mean, they're really deep up front. And Nick Sirianni said that last week was probably Jordan Davis's best game as a pro. He seems to be rounding into form a little bit, but yeah, this Eagles defensive line is really tough, and that I haven't even mentioned any of their linebackers either. So, this Philly defense is going to be a test, man, and I really think they might give this Dallas offense fits.
Yeah, I think I mean, like we say every week, I mean, you just can't let the defensive line, and this is probably by far the best defensive line they have faced through the first, 5 or 6 weeks of the season. It's going to be important to give Cooper Rush enough time to stand back there and make some of these key throws that they're going to need to make. And it's also going to be important to keep the ball out of harm's way, which we're going to talk about the secondary as well, which is a strength for the Eagles, I would say, at this point in the season. So blocking up front, but it all starts with blocking up front, making sure you can establish the run game. Zeke has had some pretty good games against the Eagles in his career. And he's rushed out of, let's see, 3, 6, 10 matchups with against the Eagles. Zeke's rushed for over 85, 86 yards in 8 of them. So, I mean, he's had some success, and it's going to start up there with him again in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even mention, Josh Sweat. I'm looking at their grades from last week, and they're so deep up front, man. I mean, it's going to be a problem for them. I'd wondered if Nakobe Dean was going to play much of a role for them, but he hasn't early on. Linebacker wise, it's just kind of been Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, just shouldering a lot of the load in the middle. Their secondary has been a lot better this year. Marcus Epps has played well for them. They brought in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He hasn't necessarily been great, but we know his pedigree. James Bradbury's had a really good bounce back year, and then Darius Slay's had a really strong season as well. This is a really solid defense, top to bottom. It sounds like Darius Slay is going to do a lot of maybe not shadowing, but he's going to be doing a lot of work on CeeDee Lamb this week. Is what the reports are saying and what the noise has been. So it's going to be a good test for CeeDee Lamb. Darius Slay had an outstanding performance against Justin Jefferson in primetime a few weeks ago. So this is a good test for CD. And he's generally played really well since Tampa Bay. But yeah, this is a test across the board. This is going to be a test for Tyler Smith. This is going to be a test for some of the unproven guys on the Dallas roster. They're probably going to need Noah Brown to step up. With Dalton Schultz banged up, they're probably going to need Jake Ferguson to maybe make a play. And then they're just going to need
banged up too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're just the Cowboys are pretty banged up in some important spots, but up front, especially, I know I keep harping on it, but we'll see what they do with the snap counts of Jason Peters and Conor McGovern at left guard. Again, assuming it sounds like Jason Peters is going to play. Tyler Biotish needs to be better. Zach Martin had a really uncharacteristically poor game on Sunday. And then Terence Steele, who, I mean, Zach Martin is Zach Martin, but I would contend that Terence Steele has been the best and most consistent Cowboys lineman through 5 weeks. I believe I just saw he's, I think, fifth among offensive tackles in pass blocking grade. I mean, he's been rock solid at right tackle. So they're just really going to need those guys up front to be better. They're going to need a better week out of Tyler Smith. We talked in our Rams review that Tyler Smith had a little bit of a welcome to the NFL moment with Aaron Donald last week. The Cowboys are going to be busy up front, man. It's going to be a hell of an environment. And, on top of all of this, we haven't even really talked about Cooper Rush or the running backs or whatever. But on top of all this, it's going to be loud as hell in there. And they're going to have to be at like the fault. I'm sure the noise is going to be an issue with false starts, getting the calls in, getting the protection set. So they're going to really need to be sharp in the little things on Sunday if they're going to win.
Yeah, I think one thing that Kellen Moore said in his coordinator press conference this week, going back to that matchup with Tyler Smith versus Aaron Donald, is the Rams kind of really schemed that up. I know we kind of touched on that in that review on Monday, but what Kellen Moore was basically saying that is some of those one-on-one matchups that Tyler Smith ended up getting against Donald was caused by Bobby Wagner showing blitzing and then either coming or not coming, and then it kind of set the one-on-one. So I got to give a lot of credit to the Rams for setting that up. And Tyler Smith, we follow Aaron Donald up with this defensive line against the Eagles. So, again, welcome to the NFL. Like, this isn't Tulsa anymore, but I'm more than confident in Tyler Smith's ability to adjust on the fly, and also this coaching staff to be able to adjust as the game goes on to see what's working, what's not working, what can we adjust to, throughout the game to make sure that Cooper Rush can stand upright and make sure that the team can have some sort of success. I think that Washington defensive line gave this offensive line a lot of issues a couple of weeks ago. And this is even a more talented defensive line than even that squad had. So, like I said, like we keep harping on, it's going to be quite a test for this football team. Quite a test. Again, on the road is not an easy environment, especially in Philadelphia when you're the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. However it shakes out, I think there's going to be a lot of like learning lessons and teachable moments in this game to move forward with. And then obviously we're going to see these guys again later on in the season, so they'll be able to put some good film out there and make their adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just they're just gonna have to weather the storm. They're gonna have to play a possession type game. Try and flip the field. And I mean, they're gonna need the defense to pitch another great performance against a really good Philadelphia offense, which we're gonna get to in a minute. But one thing I'm keeping an eye on is, obviously the rushing attack is going to be key, but how much they use play action, because I think maybe some of it had to do with protection not holding up nearly as well last week against the Rams. But one thing that had really worked for Dallas was early down passing and early down play action. And, uh, I forget the specific numbers each week, but in Cooper Rush's first three starts, it was heavy play action, anywhere from 40 to 60%, somewhere in that ballpark. And if you look at the numbers, it was far more effective than just standard passing plays. On Sunday against the Rams, they only ran play action on 3 of Cooper Rush's 19 dropbacks, which is like 15, 16%. I think that may have had something to do with the protection not holding up nearly as well, but that's something they kind of went away from in the Rams game. I'll be curious to see how they use that, because again, that's been kind of their bread and butter with Cooper Rush so far, just because with a backup quarterback who struggles in obvious passing situations, because that's just how it is. His numbers on second and third down are not good, and that's to be expected from a backup quarterback. You need to stay ahead of the chains. You need to attack them on early downs whenever they're not 100% expecting a pass, especially with play action. So that's going to be really key with Cooper Rush, is how much they lean on the play action. And one thing that'll feed into that is, I know that the analytics suggest, and I agree with this general premise, that you don't necessarily need to be running the ball well for play action to work. But Dallas is going to need to run the ball on Sunday. That they're simply going to have to be able to do that. And maybe not as much, just pounding Zeke between the tackles for minimal gains like they did on Sunday against the Rams, but they're going to have to be effective. And how they split up the workload with Zeke and Pollard is going to be really interesting as well. Those are just some of the keys in my head. And obviously, we say this every week with Rush, but backup quarterback can't make the backbreaking mistake, especially in a nasty road environment like they're going into. Cooper Rush cannot make the backbreaking mistake, and he hasn't so far. He hasn't thrown a pick yet. I worry when that pick is coming, because it's in his bag somewhere. But there's definitely some things that they're going to need to do offensively with Cooper Rush to have some success on Sunday, because they frankly haven't had a whole lot of offensive success for at least 2 or 3 weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the game plan on this past Sunday against the Rams, I really just a lot of the offensive scheme stuff that they were doing in that game, I felt like was designed around that the Rams weren't going to do anything on this Cowboys defense, so they kind of went vanilla, for lack of a better word, on kind of what they were doing. They were going to hold the ball, not let Cooper Rush turn the ball over, because honestly, after the first couple of defensive plays and special teams plays that the Cowboys made, getting the 2 possession lead. Now I know Cooper Kupp went for 75 yards in that one, but other than that, they weren't going to go and sustain a lot of drives. So I think Kellen Moore and the offensive staff kind of adjusted to that. Say, hey, we're not going to do anything to beat us. We're going to run the ball. We're going to pick up the 2 or 3 yards that we need to with Zeke on these third and short situations. We're not going to beat ourselves with penalties. We're not going to give Cooper Rush the opportunity to throw that first pick that I would say it's probably going to eventually come at some point. The more he plays, but I just think you just kind of have to fill out the game. If this is a game where Philadelphia is kind of having some success on your defense, then you're going to have to open up the playbook a little bit more than you probably want to with Cooper Rush. But if it's a game like you did where you're getting defensive plays, you're getting the special teams play in there, I think we'll see much of the same game plan that they had on Sunday, where it's just like, all right, we're going to rely on this defense. This is a philosophy that they went back to all the way into the spring, Mike McCarthy says. Like, we're going to be defensive focused. We're not going to let essentially the offense beat us, basically, is kind of the way I take that. Even though I'm not that black and white. There's a little bit of gray in there, of course. But, I think kind of filling out the game is going to be important for how the offense is going to play.
I think the offense doing enough to win on Sunday, and ultimately having more points than Philadelphia when the clock says 0 is. I mean, they're going to have to pull some special stuff out. I mean, you're going to need a big play on special teams, be it a blocked kick, be it a big Cavante Turpin return that flips the field. You're going to need probably a takeaway or two from the defense, which we'll get to in a minute. And you're probably going to need a similar game script to what happened in Los Angeles to win this game. So that's kind of our thoughts on the offense. Let's get into the defense, Corey. I'm really excited. I mean, if you enjoy strength on strength, trenches against the trenches, this is the game for you. Watching this Dallas defensive line get after it against the Philly offensive line. I would contend that Philly probably, I mean, there's other really good ones, but Philly has a very strong case for the best offensive line in the NFL with Lane Johnson at tackle, Landon Dickerson and Sam Allo at the guard. Jason Kelsey's still just awesome at center. And then Jordan Mailata has been really good for them at left tackle. He missed last week, and it sounds like I said earlier, it sounds like he's going to be back this week. I mean, that offensive line is just loaded. And then they have Dallas Goedert at tight end, who's a great tight end, receiving tight end in his own right, but is also a solid blocker. This is a really good offensive front, and it's strength on strength, man. Dallas has struggled to stop the run at times. They were really good against the run on Sunday against the Rams, but yeah, this is strength on strength. It's going to be really good stuff. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong. Sounds like Quentin Bohanna is going to be back this week. Oso Digizua, all those guys up front. Dante Fowler. I mean, it's going to be a war in there. It's going to be a dogfight, and I'm really excited for it. This is going to be a great test for the Dallas defense. Philly's offense has, maybe I do wonder, maybe some of this has to do with, their offense fades whenever the scripted plays run out, but their second half scoring has been terrible. I believe they're averaging like 18 points a game in the second quarter this season, and then like 2, 3, 4 points a game in the other 3 quarters. So that's definitely something to monitor how they do in the early scripted plays. But yeah, this Dallas defense, this is probably their toughest test yet. They've passed every test with unbelievably flying colors. We've harped on how good the defense has been. But yeah, this is going to be a really good test, and it's going to be a dogfight in the trenches.
Yeah, when I look at this matchup, I look at the ability. To me, I know there's been a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts taking this step as a passer and all this other nonsense. To me, and I don't want to say nonsense as I'm discrediting any of that because I think he has improved as a passer. But to me, the offense still starts and stops with the run game. I think last year the Eagles came to Dallas in week 3, and that was during the whole, what is going on with Miles Sanders? Like, he was not being used out there on the field very much. This year, a completely different story through the first 5 games, 414 rushing yards. And he is, really kind of taking strides. And, Saransky has or Sirianni, what is his name?
Sirianni.
Sirianni.
Rams. Sirianni.
Yeah, Sirianni's kind of, I guess, found his trust in Miles Sanders. 87 rushing attempts, and they're not really using any other running backs aside from Jalen Hurts. So when I look at this Eagles offense, I'm looking at they run the football. That's what they do. They're a physical team, and it shows with that offensive line. So when I look at this team, you have to stop the run. If you don't stop the run, it just opens up everything else for that offense, and that's where you can kind of start getting into 20 and 30 point range for their offense. So it's tough. It's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts he's taken that step forward. And last year, it seemed like he was kind of the one holding them back. And we looked at this roster and it was like, they have really good weapons. They have a great offensive line. We know this team's floor. They can raise their ceiling if Hurts takes a step, and he definitely has taken a step. He's been a lot better. But I think Dallas is going to be, I think if they can put pressure on him, they can make him crack like they've done, like they did with Tom Brady, like they did with Joe Burrow, like they did with Matthew Stafford, and like they did with the 2 other bad quarterbacks they've played, Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz. So they're definitely going to be it's going to be on the defensive line. I'm putting pressure on Hurts and stopping that run. I mean, Miles Sanders has been really good this year. And then we haven't even mentioned the receivers. We mentioned Dallas Goedert, but we haven't mentioned A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith have both been terrific so far this year. So this is going to be a really good test for the Dallas secondary. I imagine Jaron Kearse is going to get a lot of work against Goddard in coverage because Kearse has kind of been used as the tight end stopper for Dallas. So this is going to be a tough matchup for the Dallas secondary. Again, Malik Hooker needs another strong performance on the deep end because Philly does love those deep. They've been attacking, explosive plays for sure. And then Trevon Diggs are going to need a big game from him. I think he's just going to play his side. I don't think he's going to travel with A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. And then Anthony Brown has been a lot better recently, so they're going to need. I mean, this is all hands on deck. This is a really good Philadelphia offense, and it's all going to be about how if they don't get pressure on Jalen Hurts and he just sits in the pocket cleanly, then it's going to be a long night. But we know how good this Dallas defensive line is, and that they've been the best pass rush in football. So, this is it. I think this is a very similar game script and game plan. I think for LA, for the LA game, if Dallas is going to win this game, it's going to be about the defensive line. If they're going to win, it's going to be because of the pass rush. So, it's all hands on deck, man, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think when you look at, to mention or to kind of bring home your point about, getting pressure on Jalen Hurts, his numbers when he's not blitzed versus when he is blitzed, two completely different quarterbacks. So these are per PFF. So when he's not blitzed, he has a 90.5 PFF offensive grade, which is second in the NFL. He averages 9.9 yards per attempt, first in the NFL. 73 completion percentage, third in the NFL. 7 big time throws, fifth in the NFL. 3 turnover-worthy plays, 23rd. So he's not putting the ball in harm's way when he's not blitzed. But, however, when he is blitzed, that 90.5 PFF offensive grade goes down to 57.3, 27th. 5.8 yards per attempt, 31st. 58 completion percentage, 25th. He has no big-time throws, which is 26th. And then he has 1 turnover-worthy play, which is 18th. So, I mean, those are 2 different quarterbacks when you're blitzing and not blitzing. Yeah. And then also his numbers versus the Cowboys. Have you seen these?
I know that based on last year, I know they're not good.
They're not good. He's 0-2, so 2 career starts, 59 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 5 times. So that goes to that offensive line is beatable, no matter how strong they are. He has 104 rushing yards, but no rushing TDs, which is his strong, this is one of his biggest strengths. So the Cowboys and Dan Quinn, they've had their success against Jalen Hurts, and they're going to need to bottle up some of that and, have it on the field for Sunday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do wonder how aggressive Dan Quinn's going to be, because it seems like the Cowboys, maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it doesn't seem like they blitz a ton, because, there was a graph going around this week on Twitter. I was looking for it earlier. I can't find it. It's, but basically it was a graph that showed, pass rushes that can win with 4 rushers versus, it was like pressure rates and then how often they bring more than 4. And Dallas was at the high end, where they have one of the highest pressure rates and they bring 4, one of the least among all the teams that bring pressure. So point is, Dallas has been able to win comfortably with 4 pass rushers, but I think, based on those blitz numbers, Dan Quinn has those numbers too. I'm expecting a pretty aggressive game plan from Dan Quinn, especially early on. Like, I really think they're going to try and jump on them early, like they did against the Rams. And in order to pull this upset, they're going to need plays like that to pull this up. And so, the linebackers have to be on point. They've been really good recently. Van Der Esch is having a really strong season. Anthony Barr, I think, just played his best game as a Cowboy last week against the Rams. I wonder if they'll. I don't think they're gonna spy Jalen Hurts. I think you can just use your pass rush to keep him in the well. I'm not sure you really need to do that, but Jalen Hurts' legs are something you have to game plan for. But yeah, I'm expecting an aggressive game plan from Dan Quinn. That Dallas can win the rush with 4, but this is the best. First off, this is the best offensive line they've played. And second off, like we said, they're going to have to be aggressive. The defense is going to need to be aggressive and make some plays because this does not seem like a favorable environment for the Dallas offense the way they're going, heading into this game. So I'm expecting a pretty aggressive game plan from Dan Quinn.
Yeah, and I kind of want to see Donovan Wilson, see what kind of role Dan Quinn has him in. I think he can, do some things in coverage, but I also think if they were to go to that spy design on defense, I think he's the guy I think you want to do that. So I think it could be a big game. I think he has a big chance to make an impact play that kind of shifts the momentum into the Cowboys' direction in order to win this football game. And I think he's my X factor on defense this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Donovan Wilson has been a tremendously underrated part of the defense. I think the safeties in general are, and I talk about Malik Hooker all the time. I think the safeties in general are this defense's most underrated, position group. Everyone talks about Trevon Diggs, how awesome the pass rush has been, and all that's true. But the safeties have just been awesome. Jaron Kearse looked great in his return last week from injury. Malik Hooker's, I believe, is PFF's fourth highest graded safety so far. And then Donovan Wilson has just been awesome. So this is definitely going to be a good test for the Dallas safeties as well. It's a good test all around, and I'm really excited for Sunday. Let's get into predictions and final thoughts. So I just personally think, and like we said at the top of the show, this is a big chance for Dallas. Again, you're playing with house money, but if you're able to win, you drive a considerable stake into the hearts of Philadelphia just because of how high they've been flying, and then you lose at home on national TV to your arch rival led by their backup quarterback. That would be not devastating or season ending, but that would hurt. that would hurt. And that's from the Philly perspective. If you're able to win this game, you have the whole league's attention if you win this game. People will maybe say, "Oh yeah, you've owned Philadelphia. Yeah, you haven't been able to do this." But no. Let's pause the record right now. Everyone is on record as crowning this damn Eagles team as the best team in football. So I want that abundantly clear. If the Cowboys win, people might try and retract their narrative. Oh, maybe this Eagles team isn't that good. Man, everyone has been crowning them since week one with how good they've looked so far. So Dallas wins this game, they're officially in the Super Bowl contender, NFC contender conversation. I'm, again, not saying that I think they're going to go all the way and win or what have you, but Dallas will officially belong in that conversation if they're able to win this week. And it would put a lot of doubt into the minds in Philadelphia for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is like we talked about this at the beginning. I mean, this is a huge opportunity for the Cowboys to go in and kind of stamp themselves and, go from that, I think in most people's eyes, pretender status to a contender status. So are we going to go ahead and drop our predictions right now?
Yeah, let's do
All right.
it.
All right. So last week I picked the Rams. I didn't see how the Cowboys offense was going to go in there and manufacture enough points to beat the Rams. Obviously, they did. I did pick a 19-13 loss in that game, so 32 total points, so a low scoring affair. So this week, I think it's going to be another one of those type of games. I think it's going to be low scoring. I still don't really understand how the Cowboys are going to manufacture enough points other than the defense making a couple of plays. With that being said, I am going to pick the Dallas Cowboys to go in there and win this football game. And the main reason I'm going to do that is because I just look at the history that the Cowboys have had over the last couple of years against this football team, and I can't ignore it. I mean, this is a team that a few years ago, completely different squad, but they almost went into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles with Ben DiNucci at quarterback under Mike McCarthy. So
Yeah.
I look at this situation. I think the defense, I mentioned Donovan Wilson. I think he can get to Jalen Hurts in the scramble drill one or two times, and I think force a fumble. I think they get an interception. So I'm thinking they get one, if not two takeaways in this football game, which sets the Cowboys up with enough points to win the game. I think their defense continues to do what they do and continue to have Jalen Hurts' number. So with that being said, I'm going with a score of 16-10. So I think the
Okay.
Cowboys streak of not allowing more than one touchdown continues. Their streak of not allowing more than 20 points continues. And the Cowboys walk out of Philadelphia on Sunday night as first in the NFC East.
Yeah, hey, I wouldn't protest that at all. One quick note here before I give my prediction. Just came in from John Machota that CD Lamb did not practice today with a hip issue. So that's something to monitor.
Well, if he's out,
That
scratch
changes
it.
things.
Yeah, scratch that. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he's out, but that's something to keep an eye on, just for sure. But that did just come in from John Machota. But my prediction, I'm not as hopeful as you. This is a hornet's nest that the offense is going into. It seems like the offense is just kind of hanging by a thread these last couple weeks, and I just wonder how much longer the defense. I know this defense is great. I'm not saying I don't believe in this defense, but it's going to require another just astronomical effort for them, because I just have a hard time seeing how this Dallas offense is going to be able to move the ball without Dak this week against this defense in that environment. This is not like thinking the defense is going to get cooked. It's just going to require another stupid performance from them where they hold Philly to, 10, 14, 17 points, something in there. I just really have a hard time seeing Dallas getting to 20 points on Sunday. Again, it's going to require big defensive plays, takeaways, all that, what have you. But I think Dallas keeps it close. I think it's a low-scoring, close game. The over-under on this game is 42. I think this game is going to go way under. I'm going to go 17-13 Philly. And we get Dak back next week, 4-2. With two very winnable games. I believe both are at home against the Lions and the Bears. I think the Lions game might be is the Lions game at home?
It's at home, yep.
So, you get Dak back with two very winnable games at home heading into the bye. And I think we head into the bye 6-2, which is fantastic. You can't really complain about that. So, and for both teams also, this is, given how softish given how softish both teams' schedules kind of are, neither team has many measuring stick games on the schedule. And so this is just a big measuring stick game for both teams. So we'll see how this all plays out. But I do think Dallas keeps it close in a low-scoring game, but falls a little bit short. I don't see how the offense is going to be able to score more than 2 touchdowns, I guess, is this thing.
Also, just one quick note also from John Machota. He says Dak Prescott is officially listed as questionable for Sunday night against the Eagles.
Maybe.
Now, yeah, obviously I think that's just because he practiced in limited fashion. I think today probably and yesterday. But he's probably not going to play. But, they did list him as questionable, which is better than out, obviously, which I think goes to the momentum that we're going to see Dak Prescott back at home against a very bad secondary and bad defense from the Detroit Lions next Sunday. But that is just a quick note that just came in from John Machota. So
awesome. That's great news. It sounds like the news about Dak's hand this week has been really good. So, yeah, it sounds like we'll have good news about Dak to discuss on Monday next week whenever we break down, hopefully, a Dallas win over Philly, and then things coming up down the road for Dallas. So thank you guys for listening. As always, be sure to follow our Cowboys account at Cowboys News 365 on Twitter, and then our main account at Dallas_Fanatic, also on Twitter, on Instagram at DAL Cowboys Fanatic. You can get me on Twitter at Nate_Sant77. You can get Corey on Twitter at the Mr. Douglas. And as always, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's what helps us the most. Again, we're really close to 300 subscribers. So if you could help us get there, that would be awesome. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy what is the biggest Cowboys regular season game in a minute. And we will talk about it all with you guys on Monday. Thank you guys for listening to the Silver and Blue podcast. We will talk to you next time.